Good morning and welcome to the second video in our series of Nick and Stacey's holiday homes. Let me show you around. So this is our little 14th century stroke 15th century holiday home in the village of Saint-Cirq-Lapopie in the region of the Lot. Now, like most buildings in this town, most of what you see that's made of stone is either 13th or 14th century. But quite often you see the upper stories are timber framed and they're 15th. Now, the building that we're staying in is actually subdivided into two parts. There's a dividing wall about here. But chances are that in the 15th century this would have just been one building. It's probably the house of a rich merchant. The ground floor would have been a shop. If you walk around the town, all the buildings you see have galleried ground floors. So they have arches. In the 14th century, those would have been open. Those would have been shop fronts. And above, on the first floor, would have been the main accommodation. So let's pop in, and we're going to start in the basement and work our way up. Now, this is a wonderful street to come out to first thing in the morning. And that very grand building at the bottom of the street, that's the Maison Jura. That is 13th century. The building at the base of our garden, that is a 16th century chateau. Next to that we have a 15th century seigneur's palace, and then to the right of that we have a 13th century house of the mariners. And what's most interesting about that building is that the tower on the top, that fortified tower, is actually 12th century. So this is the entrance to our little garden. And this is the view that we see every morning and every evening. And from here you also get a good view of the church. Now, that church is actually relatively modern. That was built in 1522, but it is built on a 14th century and 13th century base. So this is our house, and this is the basement. Now the kitchen, in the 14th century, would have served as the stables. Now, the nice thing about this room is it's easily the coolest room in the house. So on really hot days, this is a place where we come to cool off. It's partly because of just how high those beams are above. But also because this side of the house is actually dug into the bedrock of the town. So let's now go up to the ground floor. So in the Middle Ages, this would have probably been just a reception room. Now it's our lounge, one of two. We actually use this quite often because it's the only room in the house that has Wi-Fi. This is our little bathroom. And from here, you also get a really good view out over the town to the only fortified gate left in the village. And let's go up. So the principal chamber, the grand chamber, which is easily the best room of the house. Now there are two features that really stand out for us in this room. The first, of course, difficult to miss, is this fantastic fireplace. But judging by the size of it, it's far too big for a room of this size. So in the 14th century, this must have gone through to the second half of this building. And then the other feature is that wonderful stone, mullioned and transomed 15th century window. And that also gives really nice views up the street and up to the church. Right, one final floor, the bedroom. I imagine in the 14th century this floor probably didn't exist. That first floor chamber would have been open to the roof. Now makes for a nice bedroom, but it's hot. On a hot day it's really, really hot in here. Another thing you also notice is that most of the buildings in Saint-Cirq-Lapopie have been damaged by fire and by war. Principally by the English in the 100 Years' War, but also by the French in the wars of religion in the 16th century. And you can tell that because lots of these beams are burnt. There's signs of war all over the place, not only in this house but in this village. So that brings our little tour of our second holiday home to a close. Tune in next year to see where we end up next.